I found the letter on the kitchen table, its envelope slightly askew, as if it had been hurriedly tossed there. The handwriting was unfamiliar, jagged, and hurried, and as I picked it up, a sense of foreboding washed over me. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope, the contents of which would shatter the life I thought I knew. "Dear Jessica," it began, "these last 3 years have been the best of my life, and I can't wait to see you again tonight. Mark." 3 years. The words echoed in my mind like a relentless drumbeat. My wife Jessica and I had been married for 20 years, and in that instant I felt every single one of those years crumble into dust. Images of our life together flashed before my eyes. Our wedding day, the birth of our children, family vacations, and countless quiet evenings spent together. All of it was now tainted by the revelation that my wife had been unfaithful. Numbly, I sank into a chair, the letter still clutched in my hand. My thoughts raced, trying to piece together the moments that had led to this discovery. Jessica had always been the steady anchor in our relationship, or so I thought. Had I been blind, or simply naive? I recalled the late nights at work, the whispered phone calls, and the sudden trips to visit old friends. All the signs were there, but I had been too trusting, too confident in our bond to see them for what they were. Determined to know the full extent of her betrayal, I decided to hire a private investigator. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, to confirm the horrifying reality that my wife had been living a double life. Days turned into weeks as the investigator gathered evidence. Each piece of information he presented was another knife in my heart. Photos of Jessica and Mark together, receipts from their secret rendezvous, and even messages that laid bare their affair. The depth of her deception filled me with a burning rage. It was a fire that consumed my every thought, a need for retribution that could not be quenched. As I lay awake at night, the seeds of a plan began to take root. I would not be the passive victim of her betrayal. No, I would make sure that Jessica and Mark paid for the pain they had caused. I started by gathering information about Mark. Who was this man who had stolen my wife's affection? The more I learned, the more I realized that he was not just some innocent bystander. Mark was a man with skeletons in his closet, secrets that could ruin him if they ever saw the light of day. Armed with this knowledge, I knew I could strike where it would hurt him the most. But this was just the beginning. I would dismantle Jessica's world piece by piece, just as she had dismantled mine. And when the dust finally settled, she would understand the full weight of her betrayal. With the letter still on the table, I began to plot my revenge. It would be slow, meticulous, and devastating. Jessica had shattered our life, and now it was my turn to return the favor. Looking back, our 20 years together had been a tapestry woven with moments of joy, struggle, and shared dreams. Jessica and I had met in college, our relationship blossoming amidst the chaos of late-night study sessions and youthful adventures. We had built a life together, raising 2 beautiful children, Claire and Ethan, and creating countless memories that I now struggled to reconcile with her betrayal. The day after discovering the letter, I couldn't bring myself to confront Jessica. Instead, I immersed myself in memories, trying to pinpoint when things had started to go wrong. Jessica had always been the steady force in our family, balancing her career as a marketing executive with her role as a loving mother and wife. But had I missed the signs of her growing dissatisfaction? I remembered the first time I noticed something was off. It was about 3 years ago when Jessica began working late more frequently. She attributed it to a big project at work, and I had no reason to doubt her. I trusted her implicitly, never questioning her excuses or the sudden trips to visit old friends. One evening, while Jessica was out working late, I found myself alone in our bedroom, a photo album on my lap. Flipping through the pages, I was struck by the changes in Jessica over the years. In the early photos, her smile was bright and genuine, her eyes filled with love and happiness. But as the years went on, something shifted. Her smiles became more forced, her eyes distant. The private investigator I had hired, Frank, was diligent and thorough. He provided me with daily updates, each one a painful reminder of the reality I was living. The photographs he took showed Jessica and Mark together in various places, restaurants, hotels, and even secluded parks where they thought no one could see them. The intimacy they shared in those moments was undeniable, and each image felt like a dagger to my heart. I couldn't bear the thought of our children finding out about their mother's infidelity. Claire, our 17-year-old daughter, was preparing for college, and Ethan, our 15-year-old son, was deeply involved in sports. They both idolized their mother, and I knew the truth would devastate them. But how could I protect them from the fallout of her betrayal? My anger and pain fueled my determination to exact revenge. I spent sleepless nights devising a plan that would ensure Jessica and Mark felt the full weight of their actions. The first step was to gather as much information as possible about Mark. Who was he? What did he do? What weaknesses could I exploit? Mark worked as a senior manager at a tech firm, a position that came with a significant amount of responsibility and prestige. However, Frank's investigations revealed that Mark had been involved in several unethical business practices, things that could ruin his career if they were ever made public. Armed with this knowledge, I began to plot my first move. I started by anonymously leaking some of the information about Mark's shady dealings to his company's board of directors. The fallout was swift and severe. Mark was put under investigation, his reputation tarnished, and his position at the firm in jeopardy. Watching him squirm gave me a grim satisfaction, but it was only the beginning. Next, I turned my attention to Jessica. I began to subtly manipulate our finances, making sure she would be left with nothing once I filed for divorce. I opened separate accounts, transferred funds, and documented every questionable financial move she had made over the years. I wanted her to feel the financial strain and uncertainty that would come once our marriage ended. As the days turned into weeks, I maintained a facade of normalcy at home. Jessica seemed oblivious to my actions, wrapped up in her world. I played the part of the loving husband, all the while laying the groundwork for her downfall. The more I learned about her affair, the more determined I became to see my plan through to the bitter end. The day of reckoning was approaching, and I was ready. Jessica's betrayal had set this chain of events in motion, and there was no turning back. I would make sure she and Mark paid for every moment of pain they had caused, and when it was over, I would walk away from the wreckage, ready to start anew. The tension in our household grew thicker with each passing day, though Jessica remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I maintained a facade of normalcy, going through the motions of our daily lives, all the while nurturing my plan for retribution. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, I decided it was time to delve deeper into Jessica's secret world. I accessed her phone while she was in the shower, my heart pounding as I navigated through her messages and emails. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Years of deceit laid bare in countless messages exchanged with Mark. Sweet nothings, secret rendezvous, and promises of a future together. The sheer volume of their correspondence was overwhelming, and each message was a slap in the face. As I read through their conversations, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. There were moments when Jessica had claimed to be with friends or working late, but instead, she was with him. My mind raced back to those times, picturing her with Mark while I was at home with the kids, believing she was just busy with work. The betrayal cut deep, but it also fueled my resolve. Armed with this new evidence, I contacted Frank and shared what I had found. He suggested we dig deeper into Mark's background, and together we uncovered more about his unsavory past. Mark had a history of shady business deals and personal relationships that ended badly. He was not just an interloper in my marriage. He was a man who thrived on deception and manipulation. With Frank's help, I began to compile a dossier on Mark, his professional misconduct, personal indiscretions, and the affair with Jessica. This information would be my weapon, ensuring that neither of them could escape the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I continued to prepare for the financial battle that lay ahead. I documented every financial transaction and every questionable expense that Jessica had made over the years. I was meticulous, knowing that this evidence would be crucial when it came time to confront her and file for divorce. I also started to gather evidence of her involvement in any financial misconduct, setting the stage for a legal advantage in the divorce proceedings. In the evenings, I would sit in my study, surrounded by stacks of documents and photos, meticulously piecing together the puzzle of Jessica's betrayal. Each piece of evidence, each detail, was another step closer to my goal. The pain of her infidelity was still raw, but it was transforming into a cold, calculated determination. One day, while sorting through some old files, I stumbled upon our wedding album. I hadn't looked at it in years, and as I flipped through the pages, memories of our early days together flooded back. The joy and hope in our eyes on that day seemed almost foreign now. It was a stark reminder of how much had changed, how far we had drifted apart. It also steeled my resolve. Jessica's betrayal had destroyed the life we had built, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. The next phase of my plan involved creating doubt and mistrust between Jessica and Mark. I began by sending anonymous messages to Mark, hinting that Jessica was not as faithful to him as he believed. I crafted these messages carefully, using the information I had gathered from her phone to make them believable. My goal was to sow seeds of doubt, to make Mark question her loyalty and honesty. At the same time, I started to subtly influence Jessica's perception of Mark. I would casually mention things I had heard about him, planting the idea that he might not be the man she thought he was. It was a delicate balance, but I was determined to drive a wedge between them. As the weeks passed, I could see the cracks starting to form. Jessica seemed more distracted, her once confident demeanor now tinged with uncertainty. Mark's texts became more sporadic, his tone more suspicious. My plan was working, and it gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. I knew the final confrontation was approaching. The day when I would lay everything out in the open and watch their world crumble. But for now, I continued to play my part, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Jessica had destroyed our marriage with her lies, and soon she would understand the full extent of her actions. The day of reckoning was drawing nearer, and the tension in our household was palpable. I could see it in Jessica's eyes. She sensed something was amiss, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Her frequent glances at her phone, the furtive looks, and the increased number of late-night phone calls told me she was feeling the pressure. It was time to make my first decisive move. I had already gathered a substantial amount of evidence against Mark, enough to ruin his career and personal life. Armed with this, I decided to take the first strike by anonymously leaking information about his unethical business practices to his company's board of directors. I carefully compiled the documents, making sure there was no trace back to me, and sent them off with a detailed letter outlining his misconduct. The fallout was swift. Within days, Mark was called in for a meeting with the board. The company launched an internal investigation, and rumors started to swirl about his potential termination. I watched with grim satisfaction as Mark's professional life began to unravel. The investigation made headlines in the local business news, and it wasn't long before the whispers reached Jessica. Jessica's behavior became increasingly erratic. She was constantly on edge, snapping at the kids over minor issues and retreating into herself. I continued to play the role of the supportive husband, offering her a shoulder to cry on while hiding my sense of vindication. The more she leaned on me, the more I felt my plan was justified. She deserved to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the depth of her betrayal. One evening, Jessica came home visibly shaken. She had just met with Mark, and it was clear from her demeanor that things were not going well. I listened as she poured out her frustrations, talking about the investigation and how Mark was becoming increasingly distant and paranoid. It was music to my ears, but I kept my expression neutral, offering words of comfort and understanding. As Jessica continued to unravel, I moved on to the next phase of my plan, undermining her financial stability. I'd already separated our finances and documented her questionable expenditures. Now it was time to make her feel the consequences. I began by canceling her credit cards and cutting off access to our joint accounts. She discovered this one afternoon while attempting to make a purchase, her face turning pale with shock and confusion. I feigned ignorance when she confronted me, suggesting it must be a mistake or a bank error. Watching her try to navigate the sudden financial strain was both painful and satisfying. She was starting to feel the pressure, and it was only going to get worse. With Mark's career in jeopardy and Jessica's financial situation precarious, the next step was to drive a wedge further between them. I continued to send anonymous messages to Mark, suggesting that Jessica was not as committed to him as he believed. I also made sure Jessica found evidence of Mark's supposed infidelity: a carefully planted lipstick stain on his shirt, a receipt for a dinner for two on a night he claimed to be working late. The cracks in their relationship began to widen. Jessica became more suspicious and confrontational, while Mark grew increasingly defensive. Their arguments became more frequent and intense, and I could see the toll it was taking on Jessica. She was unraveling before my eyes, her once confident and composed demeanor now replaced with anxiety and uncertainty. One night, as I lay in bed, I overheard Jessica on the phone with Mark. She was pleading with him, asking for reassurance, but his responses were curt and dismissive. Their relationship was hanging by a thread, and I knew it wouldn't be long before it snapped completely. The stage was set for the final confrontation. Jessica and Mark were both teetering on the edge, and all it would take was a little push to send them over. I was ready to reveal everything, to lay out the full extent of their betrayal and watch as their world crumbled around them. The satisfaction I felt was tempered by a deep sadness, a mourning for the life and love that had been lost. But there was no turning back now. Jessica had destroyed our marriage with her lies, and soon she would face the full consequences of her actions. And when it was all over, I would walk away, free from the shadows of deceit that had tainted our lives. As the weeks passed, the tension between Jessica and Mark reached a breaking point. I could see it in their frantic phone calls, the urgent texts, and the increasing number of times Jessica would leave the house late at night, only to return hours later, eyes red and face drawn. It was time to take the next step in my plan and force a confrontation that would expose the full extent of their betrayal. One evening, after a particularly heated argument between Jessica and Mark, I decided to make my move. I had gathered all the evidence of their affair, photos, messages, financial records, and compiled it into a neat, damning dossier. This was the moment I had been preparing for, and I felt a mix of anticipation and dread as I placed the dossier on the dining table. Jessica came home late that night, looking more exhausted than ever. She barely glanced at me as she headed towards the kitchen. I followed her silently, my heart pounding in my chest. When she saw the dossier on the table, her eyes widened in shock. She picked it up, flipping through the pages, her face growing paler with each passing moment. "What is this?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "It's everything," I replied coldly. "Everything you've been hiding from me. Everything you've done behind my back for the past 3 years." Jessica sank into a chair, the dossier slipping from her fingers. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and fear. "I can explain," she began, but I cut her off. "There's nothing to explain, Jessica. I know about the affair. I know about Mark. I know everything." She started to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "Hurt me?" I said, my voice rising. "You destroyed me, Jessica. You destroyed our family. And for what? For him?" Her tears flowed freely now, but I felt no sympathy. "I thought I loved him," she whispered. "But now everything is falling apart." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "It's over, Jessica. We're over. I'm filing for divorce, and I've already taken steps to protect myself and the kids. You won't get a cent from me." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with desperation. "Please, don't do this. We can work through this." "Work through this?" I scoffed. "There's no working through this. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." I turned and walked away, leaving her to weep alone at the table. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional confrontations. I filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct, and moved forward with my plan to ensure Jessica was left with nothing. Meanwhile, Mark's life continued to unravel. The investigation into his business practices had intensified, and he was facing possible criminal charges. His relationship with Jessica had deteriorated beyond repair, each blaming the other for their predicament. It was a small, cold comfort to see them both suffer the consequences of their actions. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, I focused on protecting our children from the fallout. Claire and Ethan were understandably confused and hurt by the sudden upheaval in their lives, and I did my best to shield them from the worst of it. I explained to them as gently as I could that their mother and I were going through a difficult time and that things would be different from now on. Jessica moved out of the house, and I retained full custody of the kids. She tried to reach out to them, to explain and seek their forgiveness, but they were too hurt and angry to listen. The life we had built together was in ruins, and there was no going back. With Jessica gone and the divorce finalized, I felt a strange sense of relief. The burden of her betrayal had been lifted, and I was free to start rebuilding my life. I focused on my work, my children, and my healing, determined to move forward and leave the past behind. Jessica and Mark had paid the price for their deceit, and though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew I would find my way. The love and trust we once shared were gone, but I had emerged stronger and wiser. It was time to look to the future and embrace the new beginning that lay ahead. With the divorce proceedings well underway and Jessica out of the house, my focus shifted to the final phases of my plan, ensuring Mark faced the full brunt of his actions. The investigation into his business practices was already causing him significant trouble, but I wanted to ensure his downfall was complete. One evening, I received a call from Frank, the private investigator. He had dug up even more dirt on Mark, uncovering evidence of embezzlement and other illegal activities. This was the final piece I needed. With this information, I knew I could bring Mark to his knees. I compiled the new evidence into another anonymous dossier and sent it to several key figures in Mark's company, as well as to the local authorities. The response was immediate and severe. Mark was suspended from his position, pending a full investigation, and the media quickly picked up the story. His name was splashed across headlines, his reputation in tatters. Watching the news coverage, I felt a grim satisfaction. Mark had thought he could steal my wife and get away with it, but now he was paying the price. His life was unraveling, just as mine had when I discovered the affair. But unlike me, he had no one to support him, no one to lean on. He was alone in his misery. Jessica, meanwhile, was struggling to rebuild her own life. With no access to our joint finances and her reputation damaged by the scandal, she was finding it difficult to find stable footing. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town and started working a lower-paying job, far removed from the life of comfort and privilege she had known. One day, while picking up the kids from school, I overheard a conversation between Claire and Ethan. They were talking about their mother, their voices filled with a mix of anger and sadness. It was clear they were still struggling to come to terms with what had happened. I knew it would take time for them to heal, just as it would for me. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, I decided to talk to them about the situation. I wanted to reassure them that, despite everything, we would get through this together. "Kids," I began, "I know this has been hard on both of you. Your mom and I have made mistakes, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. We're going to get through this as a family." Claire looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "Why did Mom do it, Dad? Why did she cheat?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Sometimes people make bad decisions, Claire. They let their emotions get the better of them and forget what's important. But that doesn't mean they don't love you. Your mom loves you very much, and so do I." Ethan, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Are you going to be okay, Dad?" I smiled, reaching out to ruffle his hair. "I will be, Ethan. We all will be. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there." As the days turned into weeks, we settled into a new routine. I focused on being there for my kids, helping them with their schoolwork and making sure they felt loved and supported. I also began to take steps to rebuild my own life, reconnecting with old friends, and finding new hobbies to fill my time. Jessica reached out occasionally, trying to mend her relationship with the kids. I allowed them to see her, understanding that they needed to make their own decisions about their mother. Slowly, they began to rebuild their bond, though it would never be the same. Mark, on the other hand, continued to spiral downward. The investigation into his activities led to criminal charges, and he eventually lost his job. His personal life was in shambles, and he became a pariah in the community. The satisfaction I felt was tempered by the realization that revenge, while satisfying in the short term, couldn't undo the damage that had been done. In the end, I had to come to terms with the fact that my life had changed irrevocably. The betrayal had left deep scars, but it had also taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the importance of family. As I looked toward the future, I felt a sense of hope and determination. I would rebuild my life piece by piece and create a new beginning for myself and my children. Jessica and Mark had faced the consequences of their actions, and now it was time for me to focus on healing and moving forward. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew I had the strength to navigate it, one step at a time. With Mark's professional life in ruins and Jessica struggling to rebuild hers, the time had come for the next step in my plan, ensuring Jessica felt the full impact of her financial misconduct. I had already laid the groundwork by separating our finances and documenting her questionable expenditures. Now it was time to pull the trigger. I began by canceling all joint credit cards and freezing our shared accounts. Jessica discovered this one afternoon while trying to make a purchase, her face turning pale with shock. She called me immediately, her voice frantic. "John, what's going on? Why can't I access our accounts?" "I've taken control of our finances, Jessica," I replied coolly. "Given your actions, I can't trust you with our money anymore." She sputtered in disbelief, but I held firm. "You brought this on yourself," I said, ending the call and feeling a grim satisfaction. Next, I filed a formal complaint with the IRS, detailing Jessica's financial misconduct and providing all the evidence I had meticulously gathered. This would trigger an audit of her finances, adding another layer of stress and complication to her already precarious situation. Jessica's financial woes began to mount. With her accounts frozen and credit cards canceled, she struggled to pay her bills and maintain her lifestyle. She moved into a smaller apartment, selling off personal items to make ends meet. Her once lavish life was reduced to a series of compromises and sacrifices. During this time, I remained a steady presence in our children's lives, offering them stability and support. I made sure they had everything they needed, shielding them from the worst of the financial turmoil. Claire and Ethan were resilient, but I could see the toll the situation was taking on them. One evening as we sat down for dinner, Claire looked at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Dad, is Mom going to be okay? She seems stressed out." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Your mom is going through a tough time right now, Claire, but she's strong, and she'll find a way to get through it. We just need to be there for each other." Ethan, always the more perceptive of the two, frowned. "Is this because of the divorce?" "It's part of it," I admitted. "Divorce is hard on everyone, and there are a lot of changes we all have to adjust to. But we're going to be okay, I promise." As the weeks passed, Jessica's situation grew more desperate. She reached out to me several times, pleading for help, but I remained resolute. She needed to understand the consequences of her actions, and I wasn't going to bail her out. One day she showed up at the house looking more haggard than I had ever seen her. "John, please," she begged. "I need help. I can't keep living like this." I looked at her, feeling a mix of pity and anger. "Jessica, you made your choices. You knew what you were risking when you decided to betray our family. Now you have to deal with the fallout." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I stood firm. "You need to find a way to support yourself. I'll take care of the kids, but you're on your own." She left, defeated, and I felt a twinge of sadness. Despite everything, she was the mother of my children, and part of me still cared for her. But I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. She had to face the consequences of her actions. As Jessica's financial struggles continued, I took steps to ensure my financial stability. I invested wisely, diversified my assets, and made sure Claire and Ethan's futures were secure. I wanted to provide them with the stability and opportunities they deserved, despite the chaos their mother had caused. Jessica's fall from grace was complete. She went from being a successful, well-respected professional to a woman struggling to make ends meet. The friends she once had distanced themselves, and her social circle dwindled. She was a shadow of her former self, and the realization of her mistakes weighed heavily on her. I had achieved my goal. Jessica and Mark had both faced the full consequences of their actions. But as I looked at the wreckage of our lives, I couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness. Revenge had been satisfying in the short term, but it hadn't healed the wounds or undone the damage. It was time to focus on rebuilding, look toward the future, and find a way to move forward. For myself, for Claire, and Ethan. The past was behind us, and a new chapter was beginning. As the legal and financial battles raged on, the tension between Jessica and Mark reached a boiling point. They were each trying to hold on to what little control they had left, but the pressure was too much. It was time for the next phase of my plan, to drive a final wedge between them by sowing seeds of mistrust and deception. I started by sending anonymous messages to Mark, using the information I had gathered from Jessica's phone. The messages were crafted to be subtle but suggestive, hinting that Jessica might not be as loyal to him as he believed. I included details only someone close to Jessica would know, making the deception all the more believable. Mark's responses were initially dismissive, but as the messages continued, I could sense his growing paranoia. He began to question Jessica more frequently, their conversations filled with suspicion and accusation. My plan was working. Meanwhile, I started planting evidence of Mark's supposed infidelity for Jessica to find. A lipstick stain on his shirt, a receipt for a dinner for two, and a hotel room key accidentally left in his car. Each discovery added to her growing distrust of Mark, and their relationship began to crumble. One evening, I overheard a particularly heated argument between them on the phone. Jessica's voice was shrill with anger and hurt, while Mark's was defensive and accusatory. It was clear that their once passionate affair was now a battleground of mistrust and resentment. The next day, Jessica confronted me. "John, have you been sending messages to Mark? He thinks I've been cheating on him." I feigned innocence, shaking my head. "Why would I do that, Jessica? You're the one who cheated, remember?" Her face flushed with anger. "You've always been jealous, always trying to control everything. I wouldn't put it past you to try and ruin this for me." I looked at her, feeling a pang of satisfaction. "Jessica, you ruined this yourself. Maybe Mark isn't the man you thought he was." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and now it was time to watch them grow. Over the next few weeks, their relationship continued to deteriorate. Mark's investigation at work had escalated, and he was now facing criminal charges. Jessica was dealing with her financial struggles and the mounting pressure from our divorce proceedings. They were both on edge, and it didn't take much to push them over. One night, while Jessica was out, I decided to take one last step to ensure their destruction. I sent a final, damning message to Mark, revealing the full extent of Jessica's betrayal and financial misconduct. I knew it would be the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. The fallout was immediate. Mark confronted Jessica, accusing her of using him and lying about everything. Their argument escalated into a full-blown fight, with harsh words and accusations flying. By the end of the night, their relationship was irreparably damaged. Jessica came home, her face tear-streaked and defeated. She didn't say a word to me, simply went to her room and closed the door. The silence in the house was heavy, but I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. They had both destroyed my life, and now they were paying the price. In the days that followed, Jessica and Mark officially ended their relationship. The scandal of their affair, combined with Mark's legal troubles and Jessica's financial woes, left them both isolated and disgraced. They had lost everything, their careers, their reputations, and each other. As for me, I felt a strange sense of closure. The revenge I had sought was complete, but it hadn't brought the peace I had hoped for. Instead, it had left me feeling hollow, a reminder of the pain and betrayal that had led us all to this point. I knew it was time to focus on the future, rebuild my life, and find a way to move forward. Claire and Ethan needed me more than ever, and I was determined to be the best father I could be. The past was behind us, and it was time to embrace a new beginning. Jessica and Mark had faced the consequences of their actions, and now it was time for us to heal and move on. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew we would find our way, one step at a time. The day of the divorce proceedings arrived with a sense of finality. I dressed in my best suit, a symbol of the control and composure I had maintained throughout this ordeal. The courthouse loomed large, a stark reminder of the life-altering events that had brought us to this moment. As I entered, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread, knowing that today would mark the end of a significant chapter in my life. Jessica arrived shortly after, looking weary and defeated. Her once vibrant appearance was now overshadowed by the toll of our unraveling marriage and the financial struggles she had been enduring. She glanced at me briefly, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and resentment. We had become strangers to each other, the love we once shared replaced by bitterness and betrayal. Our attorneys exchanged pleasantries and guided us into the courtroom. The judge, a stern-looking woman with an air of authority, presided over the proceedings. As the case was presented, I felt a strange detachment, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold. The evidence of Jessica's infidelity and financial misconduct was laid bare, and the judge's expression grew increasingly severe. Jessica's attorney made a feeble attempt to paint her actions in a sympathetic light, but the overwhelming evidence left little room for doubt. When it was my turn to speak, I addressed the court with a calm, measured tone, outlining the years of deception and the impact it had on our family. I spoke not out of anger, but out of a need for closure and justice. The judge deliberated briefly before delivering her verdict. The divorce was granted, and I was awarded full custody of Claire and Ethan. Jessica was ordered to pay child support, a sum that would undoubtedly strain her already precarious finances. The division of assets was heavily in my favor, ensuring that I could provide a stable future for our children. As the judge's gavel came down, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The legal battle was over, and I could finally begin to rebuild my life. Jessica looked devastated, but there was a resigned acceptance in her eyes. She had brought this upon herself, and now she had to live with the consequences. Outside the courtroom, I found Claire and Ethan waiting anxiously. They rushed to my side, their faces a mix of relief and uncertainty. I knelt, pulling them into a tight embrace. "It's over," I said softly. "We're going to be okay." The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. The house felt different, lighter somehow, without the constant tension that had plagued us for so long. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of hope for the first time in months. Over the next few days, I focused on creating a sense of normalcy for Claire and Ethan. I cooked their favorite meals, helped them with their schoolwork, and spent quality time together. I wanted them to feel safe and loved, to know that despite everything, they still had a stable home. Jessica moved into a small apartment across town, and our interactions were limited to matters concerning the children. She tried to reconnect with Claire and Ethan, but their trust in her had been deeply shaken. It would take time for those wounds to heal, and I hoped she would use this opportunity to reflect and grow. As I settled into our new routine, I found solace in the little things: morning coffee on the porch, evening walks with the kids, and the quiet moments of reflection after they had gone to bed. I began to rediscover passions and hobbies that I had neglected during the turmoil of our marriage. Painting, hiking, and spending time with friends became my refuge, helping me to heal and move forward. One evening, as I was tucking Ethan into bed, he looked up at me with a serious expression. "Dad, are you happy?" he asked. I smiled, ruffling his hair. "I'm getting there, buddy. We all are." He nodded, satisfied with my answer, and drifted off to sleep. I stood by his bed for a moment, watching him breathe, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Despite the pain and betrayal, we had come through stronger and closer than before. The divorce had marked the end of one chapter, but it also signaled the beginning of a new one, a chapter filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future. As I looked at my sleeping children, I knew that together, we would find our way. The past was behind us, and it was time to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. With the legal battles behind us, it was time to focus on healing the emotional wounds that had been inflicted on our family. The divorce had left its mark, and I knew that rebuilding our lives would take time, patience, and understanding. The first step was to create a sense of stability for Claire and Ethan. I established a routine that provided structure and security. We began having regular family meetings where we could openly discuss our feelings and concerns. These meetings became a safe space for the kids to express their emotions and for us to support one another. One weekend, I decided to take Claire and Ethan on a camping trip. It was something we used to do as a family, and I hoped that revisiting this tradition would help us reconnect. We packed the car with tents, sleeping bags, and enough supplies for a few days in the woods. The drive to the campsite was filled with laughter and nostalgic stories, a reminder of happier times. Once we arrived, we set up camp and spent the days hiking, fishing, and exploring the beautiful surroundings. At night, we sat around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The simplicity of nature and the absence of everyday distractions allowed us to bond in a way we hadn't in months. On the second night, as we sat around the fire, Claire broke the silence. "Dad, do you think things will ever be normal again?" I looked at her, seeing the mix of hope and uncertainty in her eyes. "I think we're finding a new kind of normal, Claire. It might be different from what we knew before, but that doesn't mean it can't be just as good." Ethan chimed in, his voice thoughtful. "I miss how things used to be, but I like spending time with you like this. It feels good." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. "Me too, Ethan. We're building something new together, and that's what matters. The camping trip was a turning point for us. We returned home with a renewed sense of closeness and a determination to move forward. I continued to focus on being present for Claire and Ethan, attending their school events, cheering them on at their sports games, and being a constant source of support and encouragement. Jessica's attempts to reconnect with the kids were slow and difficult. Claire and Ethan were reluctant to trust her again, and their visits were often tense and awkward. I encouraged them to give her a chance, reminding them that despite her mistakes, she was still their mother, and she was trying to make amends. In my own life, I sought ways to heal and grow. I joined a support group for divorced parents, where I found comfort in sharing my experiences with others who had gone through similar situations. The group provided a sense of community and understanding, helping me to process my emotions and move forward. I also reconnected with old friends and made new ones, gradually rebuilding my social circle. These friendships became a source of joy and support, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this journey. One afternoon, while browsing through a local bookstore, I met a woman named Rachel. She was browsing the same section, and we struck up a conversation about our favorite authors. There was an instant connection, a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. We exchanged numbers and began meeting for coffee and walks in the park. Rachel was kind, understanding, and patient. She knew about my past and the challenges I was facing, and she supported me every step of the way. Our relationship grew slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and trust. Introducing Rachel to Claire and Ethan was a delicate process. I wanted to ensure they felt comfortable and secure. Rachel was wonderful with them, respecting their boundaries and taking the time to get to know them. Over time, they warmed up to her, and she became a welcome addition to our lives. As the months passed, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment that I hadn't experienced in a long time. We had faced the storm and come out stronger on the other side. Claire and Ethan were thriving, and our family was healing. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I looked at my children and felt a deep sense of gratitude. We had been through so much, but we had emerged stronger and closer than ever. The future was bright, and I was excited to see what it held for us. Healing was a journey, and while there were still challenges to face, I knew we would navigate them together. The past was behind us, and we were ready to embrace the new beginnings that lay ahead. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. Claire and Ethan were adapting well, finding joy in their activities and school, and I was finding balance in my work and personal life. My relationship with Rachel blossomed, bringing a sense of normalcy and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. But as with any story, just when things seemed to be stabilizing, an unexpected twist changed everything. One crisp autumn morning as I was preparing breakfast, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, and I hesitated before answering. On the other end was a voice I hadn't heard in years, my college friend Tom. "John, it's been a long time," he said, his tone serious. "I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet?" We agreed to meet at a local cafe. As I walked in, I spotted Tom at a corner table, his expression tense. After the initial pleasantries, he got straight to the point. "John, I've been doing some work with the local authorities on financial fraud cases," he began. "Your ex-wife Jessica's name came up in an investigation." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" Tom leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "It seems she was involved in some illegal activities with Mark. They were laundering money through their businesses. The authorities are closing in, and it's only a matter of time before she's arrested." I sat back, stunned. Despite everything Jessica had done, I never imagined she would be involved in something so serious. My mind raced with the implications. How would this affect the kids? How would it impact our lives? "I thought you should know," Tom continued. "The investigation is confidential for now, but it won't be for long. You need to prepare yourself and the kids for what's coming." I thanked Tom and left the cafe, my mind in turmoil. How could Jessica have gotten herself into such a mess? And more importantly, how would I protect Claire and Ethan from the fallout? That evening, I sat down with Rachel and explained the situation. She listened attentively, her eyes filled with concern. "We need to be there for the kids," she said firmly. "They've been through so much already. We'll get through this together." Rachel's support gave me strength. I knew I had to tell Claire and Ethan, but I wanted to do it in a way that minimized the impact on them. The next day, I took them out for ice cream, hoping the relaxed environment would help soften the blow. As we sat in the park, enjoying our treats, I broached the subject gently. There's something I need to talk to you both about. It's about your mom." They looked up, their expressions wary. "What is it, Dad?" Claire asked. I took a deep breath. "Your mom has gotten into some trouble. It's serious, and she might have to face some legal consequences. I want you to know that no matter what happens, we're going to get through this. Together." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Is she going to jail?" I hugged him tightly. "I don't know, Ethan, but whatever happens, we'll face it as a family." The news hit them hard, but they were resilient. Over the next few days, I made sure to spend extra time with them, answering their questions as best I could and reassuring them of my love and support. As the investigation progressed, the inevitable happened. Jessica was arrested. The media caught wind of the story, and it became a local scandal. Claire and Ethan faced whispers and stares at school, but they handled it with remarkable maturity. Rachel and I stood by them, providing a haven where they could express their fears and frustrations. One evening, Claire approached me with a determined look in her eyes. "Dad, I want to see Mom. I need to talk to her." I hesitated, but I understood her need for closure. "Okay, Claire, we'll arrange a visit." The visit to the detention center was emotional. Jessica looked worn and fragile, a shadow of the woman she once was. Claire and Ethan's presence brought tears to her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, reaching out to them. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Claire spoke softly but firmly. "We just want you to be honest with us, Mom. We need to know the truth." Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I made mistakes and now I'm paying for them. But I love you both so much. Please don't ever doubt that." The visit was a turning point for Claire and Ethan. They had seen their mother at her lowest, but they also saw her taking responsibility for her actions. It was a painful but necessary step in their journey towards healing. As the weeks turned into months, the trial proceeded, and Jessica was sentenced to several years in prison. It was a difficult reality to accept, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter for our family. With Rachel by my side, we continued to support Claire and Ethan, helping them navigate the complexities of their emotions. We focused on building a future filled with hope and resilience, knowing that the challenges we faced had only made us stronger. The unexpected twist in our story had tested us in ways we couldn't have imagined, but it also brought us closer together. We learned that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found in the strength of family and the power of love. And as we looked towards the future, we did so with a renewed sense of purpose and unity, ready to face whatever came our way together. The news of Jessica's arrest and subsequent trial sent shockwaves through our community. The scandal was the talk of the town, and while I did my best to shield Claire and Ethan from the worst of it, there was no escaping the whispers and stares. Our once private family drama had become a public spectacle, and we were all feeling the ripple effects. At school, Claire and Ethan faced a barrage of questions and gossip. Their friends were curious, their teachers concerned, and the other parents were wary. I met with the school counselor to ensure that Claire and Ethan had the support they needed to navigate this difficult time. "Your children are strong," the counselor assured me, "but they'll need a lot of reassurance and understanding from you." At home, I focused on creating a safe and nurturing environment. We established new routines and rituals that provided a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. Movie nights, weekend hikes, and family dinners became sacred times when we could connect and find solace in each other's company. Rachel was an invaluable support, her calm presence a steady anchor in the storm. She spent time with Claire and Ethan, offering a listening ear and a comforting shoulder. Her bond with them grew stronger, and they began to see her not just as my partner, but as a trusted friend and confidant. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Ethan looked up from his plate. "Dad, why did Mom do it? Why did she break the law?" It was a question that had been lingering in all our minds. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Your mom made some bad choices, Ethan. She got caught up in the wrong things, and now she's facing the consequences. But that doesn't change the fact that she loves you both very much." Claire nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's hard to understand, but I think she made mistakes because she was scared. Maybe she thought she didn't have any other options." I smiled at her insight. "You're right, Claire. Sometimes people make bad decisions when they're afraid or feel trapped, but we can learn from those mistakes and make better choices in our own lives." As the weeks passed, the media frenzy died down, and we began to find a new equilibrium. Claire and Ethan adjusted to their new reality with remarkable resilience, strength, and maturity, a constant source of pride for me. Jessica's incarceration was a difficult adjustment for everyone, but we found ways to stay connected. We arranged regular visits, during which Claire and Ethan could see their mother and maintain a relationship with her. These visits were emotional and sometimes painful, but they were also a chance for healing and reconciliation. During one such visit, Jessica and I had a rare moment alone. She looked at me, her eyes filled with remorse. "John, I know I've hurt you and the kids more than I can ever make up for. I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. "We all make mistakes, Jessica. The important thing is that you're taking responsibility and trying to make things right. That's all we can ask for." The journey towards healing was not a straight path. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but there were also breakthroughs and moments of profound connection. One such moment came when Claire decided to write an essay for her English class about overcoming adversity. She shared it with us one evening, her voice steady and strong as she read aloud. "In the face of challenges, we find our true strength," she wrote. "My family has been through a lot, but we've come out stronger on the other side. We've learned that love and support can get us through even the darkest times." Tears filled my eyes as she finished reading, and I hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Claire. You're incredibly brave and wise beyond your years." Ethan chimed in, his voice filled with determination. "Yeah, and we're going to keep being strong no matter what." Rachel, who had been listening quietly, smiled warmly. "You two are amazing. Your strength and resilience inspire all of us." As we moved forward, we continued to focus on building a future filled with hope and possibility. We made plans for summer vacations, set new goals, and celebrated the small victories that marked our progress. The past had left its scars, but it had also taught us valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of family. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch watching Claire and Ethan play in the yard, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but we had come through it together. Our family was different now, but it was also stronger and more united than ever before. The ripple effect of Jessica's actions had touched every aspect of our lives, but it had also brought us closer and made us more resilient. As I looked towards the future, I felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. We would continue to face whatever challenges came our way, knowing that together, we could overcome anything. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Rachel by my side and my children's unwavering strength, I knew we were ready for whatever the future held. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger, and now it was time to embrace the new beginnings that lay ahead. As the dust settled from the upheaval of Jessica's arrest and trial, life began to take on a new rhythm. However, the process of rebuilding trust within our family was far from complete. Claire and Ethan had endured more than any child should, and their ability to trust others, especially their mother, had been severely tested. My relationship with them, too, needed continuous nurturing to fully heal from the wounds of the past few years. I knew that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. It required time, consistency, and genuine effort. To help facilitate this, I organized regular family therapy sessions. These sessions provided a safe space for us to express our feelings, address lingering fears, and learn healthy ways to communicate and support each other. Our therapist, Dr. Miller, was a compassionate and skilled professional who quickly earned our trust. In one of our early sessions, she encouraged us to participate in an exercise where we shared our most painful memories and our hopes for the future. Claire spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. "I was so scared when everything happened with Mom. I felt like our whole world was falling apart, but I also hope that we can find a way to be a family again, even if it's different now." Ethan followed, his eyes downcast. "I felt angry and confused. I didn't understand why Mom did what she did, but I want us to be happy again. I want to feel safe." When it was my turn, I looked at my children and then at Rachel, who had been a pillar of strength throughout this ordeal. I felt betrayed and heartbroken, but seeing how strong you two have been gives me hope. I want us to move forward, to build a future where we trust and support each other. Rachel's turn came last. She spoke softly but with conviction. "I know I came into your lives during a difficult time, and I'm grateful for the way you've accepted me. I hope that we can continue to grow as a family. building trust and love every day. These sessions became a cornerstone of our healing process. They helped us to better understand each other's perspectives and to develop strategies for rebuilding trust. Over time, I noticed a positive change in Claire and Ethan. They became more open and more willing to share their thoughts and feelings. The walls they had built to protect themselves began to come down, brick by brick. Jessica's involvement in our lives also required careful navigation. Despite her mistakes, she was determined to maintain a relationship with Claire and Ethan. We arranged supervised visits, during which she made a genuine effort to reconnect with them. These visits were emotional and sometimes strained, but they were also a step toward healing. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging visit with Jessica, Claire approached me. "Dad, do you think Mom will ever really change?" I took a moment to consider my response. "I think she's trying, Claire. Change is hard, and it takes time, but the fact that she's making an effort is a good sign. It's up to her to prove that she can be trustworthy again." Claire nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I guess we'll just have to wait and see." Ethan, who had been listening quietly, added, "I want to believe she can change. I miss the way things used to be." Their willingness to give Jessica a chance, despite everything, spoke volumes about their resilience and capacity for forgiveness. It was a reminder that while trust could be broken, it could also be rebuilt with effort and sincerity. As we continued to navigate this complex journey, I focused on creating positive experiences and memories for Claire and Ethan. We took trips to the beach, explored new hiking trails, and celebrated milestones together. Each shared experience helped to reinforce the bonds of trust and love that were slowly being rebuilt. Rachel played a crucial role in this process. Her unwavering support and kindness helped to create a sense of stability and security for the kids. She was always there to listen, to offer a comforting word, or to share in their joys and challenges. Her presence was a reminder that love and trust could be found again, even after the deepest betrayals. One evening, as we gathered around the dinner table, I proposed a new family tradition. "How about we start a weekly gratitude journal? We can each write down something we're grateful for and share it." Claire's eyes lit up. "I love that idea, Dad." Ethan grinned. "Me too. I think it'll help us focus on the good things." Rachel smiled warmly. "It's a wonderful idea, John. Let's do it." And so, every Sunday evening, we gathered to share our gratitude. It became a cherished ritual, a way to celebrate the positives in our lives, and to remind each other of the love and support we shared. This simple practice helped to strengthen our family bonds and foster an atmosphere of trust and appreciation. As the months passed, I saw a transformation in Claire and Ethan. They were more confident, more at ease, and more willing to trust. They had learned that while people could make mistakes, it was possible to move forward and rebuild broken relationships. Their capacity for forgiveness and resilience was a testament to their strength and character. In my journey, I found healing and growth. I had faced the pain of betrayal, but I had also discovered the power of love and support. With Rachel by my side and my children's unwavering strength, I knew that we could face any challenge that came our way. Rebuilding trust was not an easy process, but it was a rewarding one. It required patience, effort, and a willingness to forgive. But through it all, we had become a stronger, more united family. The past had left its scars, but it had also taught us valuable lessons about resilience, love, and the power of family. As we looked towards the future, we did so with a renewed sense of hope and determination. We were ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead, knowing that together, we could overcome anything. The journey of rebuilding trust had brought us closer, and we were ready to face whatever came our way, united and strong. As we moved forward from the turbulence of the past few years, a sense of calm began to settle over our lives. The routines we established provided stability, and the bonds we rebuilt provided a foundation for the future. It was time to embrace the new beginning that lay ahead. One sunny Saturday morning, I woke up with a sense of anticipation. Today we were moving into a new house, a fresh start for our family. The kids had picked out their rooms, and Rachel had helped me choose a cozy, welcoming home in a friendly neighborhood. The move symbolized our progress and the new chapter we were entering. We spent the day packing up our belongings and reminiscing about the memories we had created in our old home. As I wrapped up a framed photo of Claire and Ethan from their early childhood, I felt a mix of nostalgia and excitement. The photo represented the innocence and joy we had once known, and I was determined to reclaim that for our family. The moving truck arrived, and we loaded it with our boxes and furniture. Claire and Ethan were buzzing with excitement, their enthusiasm infectious. Rachel and I exchanged smiles, both of us feeling the promise of a fresh start. When we arrived at our new house, we were greeted by friendly neighbors who offered warm welcomes and helping hands. It was a stark contrast to the isolation we had felt during the height of our troubles. This community was open and supportive, and it felt like the perfect place to begin anew. As we unpacked and set up our new home, I could see the transformation in Claire and Ethan. They explored the house with wide-eyed wonder, imagining all the possibilities that came with this new space. Their laughter filled the rooms, a sound that brought immense joy to my heart. That evening we had our first meal in the new house, pizza on the living room floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes. It was simple, but it was perfect. We talked about our hopes and dreams for the future, sharing stories and laughter. "I think this house is going to be amazing," Claire said, her eyes sparkling. Ethan nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it feels like a new adventure." Rachel raised her glass of sparkling cider. "To new beginnings in our family." We clinked our glasses together, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had come through so much, but we had emerged stronger and closer. This new house was more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of our resilience and our commitment to each other. Over the next few weeks, we settled into our new life. Claire and Ethan made new friends in the neighborhood, and their school performance improved as they felt more secure and happy. Rachel and I continued to build our relationship, finding joy in the everyday moments we shared. One afternoon, as I was working in the garden, Claire joined me. "Dad, I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice serious. I put down my tools and looked at her. "What's on your mind, Claire?" "I want to visit Mom more often," she said. "I think it's important for Ethan and me to have a relationship with her, even if it's different now." I nodded, understanding the importance of her request. "Of course, Claire. We can arrange more visits. It's important for you to feel connected to both of your parents." Claire smiled, relieved. "Thanks, Dad. I just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to heal." Her maturity and thoughtfulness never ceased to amaze me. "I'm proud of you, Claire. You've grown so much, and you're showing incredible strength." As we arranged more visits with Jessica, I noticed a positive change in the kids. They were more at ease and more willing to open up about their feelings. The visits were sometimes emotional, but they were also a step towards healing and reconciliation. Rachel and I continued to support them, offering a listening ear and a comforting presence. We attended their school events, cheered them on at their sports games, and celebrated their achievements. Our home became a place of love, laughter, and support. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I looked at my family and felt a deep sense of contentment. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger. We had built a new life filled with hope and possibility. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had also brought us closer and made us more resilient. Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand. "We've come a long way, John. I'm so grateful for this family." I smiled, feeling the warmth of her words. "So am I, Rachel. So am I." As we continued to navigate the complexities of our new life, I knew that we were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. We had built a strong foundation, and with love and support, we could face anything. The future was bright, and I was excited to see what it held for us. With Rachel by my side, and Claire and Ethan's unwavering strength, I knew we were ready to embrace the new beginnings that lay ahead. The past was behind us, and it was time to look forward with hope and optimism. We were a family, and together we could overcome anything. As the months went by, our new house truly began to feel like home. The kids thrived in their new environment, and our family grew stronger each day. It was a time of rediscovery and renewal, and we were determined to fill our lives with as much joy and positivity as possible. One sunny Saturday, I decided it was time for a surprise. I gathered Claire and Ethan in the living room, a mischievous smile on my face. Rachel watched with curiosity from the kitchen. "All right, team," I began. "I've got a surprise for you. How would you like to go on a family adventure?" Ethan's eyes lit up. "What kind of adventure, Dad?" "A fun one," I replied. "We're going to an amusement park. Pack your bags. We're leaving in an hour." The excitement was immediate. Claire and Ethan rushed to their rooms, eager to pack their things. Rachel walked over, her eyebrows raised in amused disbelief. An amusement park? I grinned. Yeah, I thought it would be a great way to spend some quality time together and just have fun. Rachel smiled warmly, wrapping her arms around me. I think it's a wonderful idea. We loaded the car with snacks, sunscreen, and plenty of water, and soon we were on our way. The drive to the amusement park was filled with laughter and anticipation. Claire and Ethan chatted excitedly about the rides they wanted to try, and Rachel and I enjoyed the joyful energy that filled the car. When we arrived, the park was buzzing with activity. The kids were practically vibrating with excitement, and it wasn't long before we were all caught up in the fun. We started with the roller coasters, the thrilling twists and turns eliciting screams and laughter. Claire and Ethan's faces were radiant with joy, and I couldn't help but smile at their happiness. We spent the day exploring the park, trying out different rides, playing games, and indulging in sugary treats. It was a day of pure, unadulterated fun, and it was exactly what we needed. The laughter and joy we shared that day helped to heal the lingering wounds of the past, reminding us of the importance of living in the moment and cherishing each other. In the evening, as the sun began to set, we found a spot near the park's lake to watch the fireworks show. The sky exploded with colors, and the kids' faces were lit with awe and wonder. Rachel nestled close to me, and I wrapped my arm around her, feeling a deep sense of contentment. This was a perfect day, Claire said, her voice filled with happiness. Ethan nodded, his eyes still fixed on the sky. The best day ever. I smiled, grateful for the moment. I'm glad you both enjoyed it. We'll have to make this a tradition. Rachel looked at me, her eyes filled with love. You've given them something wonderful to remember, John. Thank you. The drive home was quieter, the kids dozing off in the back seat, exhausted but happy. Rachel and I exchanged smiles, both of us feeling the warmth of the day's experiences. The following weeks were filled with more joyful activities. We had picnics in the park, went hiking in the nearby woods, and even tried our hand at baking together. Each experience brought us closer and helped to reinforce the bonds of trust and love we had worked so hard to rebuild. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the beach. The kids loved the ocean, and Rachel and I enjoyed the chance to relax and unwind. We built sandcastles, swam in the waves, and had a bonfire at night where we roasted marshmallows and told stories. As we sat around the fire, the sound of the waves crashing in the background, Claire looked at me with a thoughtful expression. Dad, I feel like we're really happy now. Even though things were hard, I think we've become stronger because of it. I nodded, feeling a swell of pride. You're right, Claire. We've been through a lot, but it's made us appreciate what we have even more. Ethan added, and we have Rachel too. She makes everything better. Rachel smiled, her eyes shining with tears. I'm so grateful to be a part of this family. You've all brought so much joy into my life. We sat there, wrapped in the warmth of the fire and each other's presence, feeling a sense of unity and peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had also been filled with moments of profound connection and love. As we prepared to head back home, I looked at my family and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The past had shaped us, but it didn't define us. We had the strength to create our future, filled with love, joy, and endless possibilities. With each passing day, we continued to rediscover the joy in our lives. We embraced the small moments, celebrated the big ones, and faced each challenge with courage and determination. Our family was a testament to the power of resilience and the unbreakable bonds of love. The future was bright, and we were ready to embrace it together. We had found our way through the darkness, and now we were living in the light, filled with hope and joy for the days to come. As we settled into our new life, the theme of forgiveness became increasingly important. It was a crucial step in our healing process, not just for Claire and Ethan, but for myself and even for Jessica. Forgiveness was necessary to truly move forward, to let go of the past, and to embrace the future with open hearts. One afternoon, I found Claire in her room, writing in her journal. She looked up as I entered, her expression pensive. Hey, Claire, what's on your mind? I asked, sitting down beside her. She sighed. I've been thinking a lot about Mom. I know she made mistakes, but I still love her. I want to forgive her, but it's hard. I nodded, understanding her struggle. Forgiveness isn't easy, Claire. It's a process and it takes time. But holding on to anger can hurt us more than it hurts the person we're angry with. Forgiving your mom doesn't mean you forget what happened or that it was okay. It means you're choosing to let go of the pain and move forward. Claire listened quietly, absorbing my words. I want to forgive her, Dad. I want us all to be happy. I know, sweetheart, and we will be. We're taking steps every day to heal and build a better future. A few days later, we had a family meeting where we discussed the importance of forgiveness. Ethan was hesitant at first, but he opened up as we talked about our feelings and the benefits of letting go of resentment. I still feel angry sometimes, Ethan admitted, but I don't want to feel that way forever. Rachel, ever supportive, added her perspective. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, Ethan. It frees you from carrying the weight of anger and hurt. It's not about the other person. It's about finding peace within yourself. We decided to write letters to Jessica, expressing our feelings and our desire to move forward. It was a therapeutic exercise, allowing us to articulate our emotions and take a step towards forgiveness. In my letter, I wrote about the pain and betrayal I had felt, but also about the hope I had for her future and the importance of her relationship with Claire and Ethan. I wished her well and expressed my commitment to co-parenting in a way that was best for our children. Claire and Ethan wrote their letters with honesty and maturity. They shared their hurt, but also their love and their desire to rebuild their relationship with her. It was a powerful moment for all of us, a collective step towards healing. We mailed the letters and continued to focus on our healing journey. As the weeks passed, I noticed a change in Claire and Ethan. They seemed lighter, more at peace. The act of forgiving had freed them from the burden of anger, allowing them to embrace the present with open hearts. Jessica responded to our letters with heartfelt apologies and expressions of gratitude. She acknowledged her mistakes and expressed her deep love for Claire and Ethan. It was a step towards reconciliation, a glimmer of hope that we could rebuild our relationships more healthily. Our visits with Jessica became more meaningful. There were still difficult moments, but there were also moments of genuine connection and understanding. Claire and Ethan began to see their mother not just as the person who had hurt them, but as someone who was trying to make amends and be a better parent. One evening, after a particularly positive visit with Jessica, Claire turned to me with a smile. I think Mom is trying, Dad. It makes me happy to see her doing better. I'm glad to hear that, Claire. All of us need to see her making progress. Ethan nodded in agreement. It feels good to forgive her. I feel like I can move on now. Rachel, who had been listening quietly, added, Forgiveness is a powerful thing. It's a testament to your strength and your capacity for love. Our journey towards forgiveness was not without its challenges, but it was a crucial part of our healing process. It allowed us to release the past and embrace the future with hope and optimism. As we continued to rebuild our lives, we focused on creating positive experiences and strengthening our family bonds. We celebrated each milestone, big and small, and found joy in the everyday moments we shared. One weekend, we decided to plant a garden in our backyard. It was a symbol of our growth and renewal, a way to nurture new life and beauty in our home. We spent the day digging, planting, and laughing together, each of us contributing to the creation of something beautiful. As we stood back to admire our work, Rachel put her arm around me. Look at what we've created, John. It's more than just a garden. It's a testament to our journey and our resilience. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. We've come a long way and we've done it together. I'm so proud of us. Claire and Ethan joined us, their faces glowing with happiness. This garden is going to be amazing, Claire said, her voice filled with excitement. Ethan nodded. It's like a new beginning for all of us. As we looked at our garden, I realized that forgiveness had allowed us to let go of the past and embrace the future with open hearts. We had found a way to move forward, stronger and more united than ever. The journey towards forgiveness had brought us closer, and we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. We had learned that forgiveness was not just about letting go, it was about finding peace and creating a future filled with love and hope. With Rachel by my side and Claire and Ethan's unwavering strength, I knew we could overcome anything. The past was behind us, and the future was filled with endless possibilities. Together, we would continue to grow, nurture, and embrace the new beginnings that lay ahead. As our family continued to heal and grow, A sense of optimism filled our lives. We had faced and overcome many challenges, and now it was time to focus on the future and the opportunities it held. Our journey had brought us closer and taught us invaluable lessons about resilience and forgiveness, and now we were ready to embrace the future with open hearts and minds. One evening, as we gathered for our weekly gratitude journal session, I noticed how much we had changed. Claire and Ethan were more confident and happy, and Rachel and I had formed a strong and supportive partnership. We were a family, and our bond was stronger than ever. As we went around the table sharing our gratitude, Claire spoke up. "I'm grateful for our new home and all the new friends I've made. I feel like we're starting a new chapter, and it's exciting." Ethan nodded. "I'm grateful for our family. We've been through a lot, but we're stronger because of it. And I'm grateful for Rachel. She's made a big difference in our lives." Rachel smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "Thank you, Ethan. I'm grateful for all of you. Being a part of this family has been the greatest joy of my life." When it was my turn, I looked around the table at the faces of the people I loved most. "I'm grateful for each of you. Claire and Ethan, you've shown incredible strength and resilience. Rachel, your support and love have been invaluable. I'm grateful for the new beginnings we've created together, and I'm excited for the future." As we finished our session, I felt a sense of fulfillment and peace. We had come a long way, and the future was filled with promise. A few weeks later, I decided to surprise the family with a trip. I gathered everyone in the living room and revealed my plan. "How would you all like to go on a vacation to the mountains? A week of hiking, exploring, and spending time together in nature." Claire and Ethan's eyes lit up with excitement. "That sounds amazing, Dad," Claire exclaimed. Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "I've always wanted to go to the mountains. It'll be an adventure." Rachel smiled, her eyes twinkling. "That sounds perfect, John. It'll be a great way to celebrate how far we've come." We packed our bags and set off for the mountains, the anticipation and excitement palpable. The drive was filled with laughter and conversation, and as we approached our destination, the breathtaking scenery took our breath away. Our cabin was nestled in a picturesque valley, surrounded by towering trees and crystal-clear streams. It was the perfect place to unwind and reconnect with nature and each other. Each day, we embarked on new adventures. We hiked through lush forests, discovering hidden waterfalls and scenic overlooks. We spent our evenings by the campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The beauty of the mountains and the simplicity of our days brought us closer together, reinforcing the bonds we had worked so hard to rebuild. One afternoon, while exploring a trail, Claire turned to me. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about the future. I'm excited about all the possibilities, but I also want to make sure we keep making time for each other, no matter what happens." I smiled, proud of her maturity and insight. "That's a great idea, Claire. Our family time is important, and we'll always make it a priority." Ethan chimed in, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "And we should keep doing things like this, trips and adventures. It makes everything more fun." Rachel nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. These experiences are what create lasting memories and strengthen our family bond." As the week drew to a close, we packed up and headed home, our hearts full of joy and our minds filled with new memories. The trip had been a celebration of our journey and a reminder of the importance of cherishing the moments we shared. Back at home, life resumed its normal rhythm, but there was a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. Claire and Ethan continued to excel in school and their activities, and Rachel and I found new ways to support each other and nurture our relationship. One evening, as Rachel and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "John, I've been thinking about the future too. I love our life together, and I want to keep building on it. What do you think about the idea of getting married?" Her question took me by surprise, but it also filled me with joy. "Rachel, I can't imagine my life without you. I would love to marry you." Her eyes filled with tears of happiness, and we embraced, knowing that this was another step towards solidifying our future together. We decided to share the news with Claire and Ethan the next day. Their reactions were everything we hoped for: excitement, joy, and a sense of completeness. "This is amazing," Claire exclaimed. "Rachel, you're already like a second mom to us. This just makes it official." Ethan grinned. "Yeah, I'm happy for you both. We're going to be an even stronger family." Our wedding was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family. It was a celebration of love, resilience, and the journey we had undertaken together. As Rachel and I exchanged vows, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life we had built and the future we were creating. As the seasons changed and the years passed, we continued to embrace each new day with hope and optimism. Our family grew stronger, our bonds deeper, and our love more profound. We faced challenges with courage, celebrated victories with joy, and supported each other through every twist and turn. Our story was one of resilience, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family. We learned that even in the darkest times there is always hope, and with love and determination, we can overcome anything. The future was bright, and we were ready to embrace it, knowing that together we could face whatever came our way. Our journey had made us stronger, and we were excited to continue building a life filled with love, joy, and endless possibilities.